Good afternoon. We thank you for your patience this afternoon as we get started with our service of unity and love. My name is Ted Goshorn. I'm the senior pastor here at Mulberry Street United Methodist Church. It is our deep pleasure to welcome all of you and then everyone in the fellowship hall who is also joining us. There are approximately 900 people here right now and some still arriving. Let's give a round of applause for that. It has taken an army of volunteers to make today happen. If you see someone wearing a name tag on your way out today, please tell them thank you. Many of them didn't know they were needed until Thursday morning, and they responded in droves. It has taken a community to bring this service together, and we're glad you're here. I just have a few quick things to share with you. Number one is the restrooms. You can go out either door on either side of the chancel area, and there will be volunteers there that can show you the way to the restrooms. There's also signage posted on the walls. Should there be an emergency, we ask two things: to remain seated and to remain calm. And Rabbi Bahar and I will give further instructions as they are necessary. So remain seated, remain calm, but hopefully there is no need for any of that today. Finally, what we are doing here today is we are fostering healing for the areas, for the way that hate has infiltrated our community. And I'm so glad to see so many of you here ready to do that. So to kick things off, we have the president of Temple Beth Israel, Simon Becker, and I'm pleased to welcome Simon Becker to the pulpit to bring us some opening remarks.
Good afternoon. I'm Simon Becker, president of Temple Beth Israel. I want to express my gratitude on behalf of the Temple membership for your presence at this gathering of love and solidarity. Temple Beth Israel has peacefully coexisted with its neighbors for 164 years, and to my knowledge has never experienced anything like what happened on the steps of the temple just before Shabbat on July 23rd, when hate came to call. The actions of the neo-Nazis awakened deep-seated fears within us that have simmered under the surface of our comfort zone for many decades. Your unconditional support, both at the impromptu rally last Saturday and here today, serves as an important reminder that our community welcomes, supports, and loves us, and that we are safe. One of our Jewish ethical writings, Pirkei Avot, the Ethics of the Fathers, teaches us Kol Echad Ze Leze, which means that every individual is responsible for one another and will always look out for one another. You have lived that teaching through your outpouring of support, and we are eternally grateful and even more committed to living that teaching in return should you call. We are grateful to have Senator Ossoff, Representative Bishop, Mayor Miller, and other dignitaries with us. But more importantly, you are here. Your presence tells us that not here, not now, and not ever will Macon tolerate this kind of hateful demonstration. As a community, we stand against hate. I cannot fully express the gratitude and significance of your support for the Jewish community. We are incredibly thankful, and you can be assured that we will stand by your side if the need arises. Thank you.
I'd like to invite up Pastor Jason McClendon and thank him so much for all of his support that he and his community has sent and offered us.
Greetings to this holy assembly and also to my friend, Rabbi Bahar. When I heard about the horrific events that had taken place, we were at our global convention. I serve as a senior cabinet member for the Church of God Ministries, with headquarters out of Anderson, Indiana, where we have currently over 1.2 million believers around the world. At our global convention, it was called for us to come together. As I'm reminded of what happened in the book of Exodus when God decided to free Israel from slavery, notice how in Exodus, the 12th chapter in verse 38, it said that a mixed multitude came with them. I am reminded that when God called Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to be able to be raised up to help us as Americans and African Americans to see equality and also civil rights for everyone, as those that are called and created in the Imago Dei of God, I stand here in solidarity with my Jewish brothers and sisters, and on behalf of every African American pastor and those pastors that serve here in Macon, we categorically rebuke and deny all of the hatred and all of the hateful protests that took place in Macon. As what took place in the mixed multitude that were following after God, I recognize and share with you that there are several brothers and sisters that are in the pursuit of happiness, that are serving God, understand that even though we may not agree theologically on everything, we all know that we were created in the image of God. Therefore, we stand with our brothers and sisters. I want to thank Rabbi Bahar for giving me the privilege to speak over at Temple Beth Israel, but let it be known that here in Macon, where we live, work, and play, we stand together united and making so much better for it. At this time, I'd like to invite every pastor to please stand at this time. These are men and women before you that understand the holy calling that we have. We are not perfect, but we do know that every person was created in the image of God, and therefore we will serve together, we will live together, and we will help one another. My presence here is in the support of my good friend and my Jewish brothers and sisters, but most importantly for the city of Macon where I live. I am so thankful to be a part of a community that when something happens to somebody, we all come together. Give yourselves a round of praise.
I want to take an opportunity to thank Mayor Miller for coming here today. When he heard about everything that happened to us, he reached out with love in his heart to make sure we are okay and safe. And I just want to say thank you, Mayor.
I hope you don't mind. I brought a few notes because I do have a tendency to go beyond, and today we're limited in time. First of all, Senator Ossoff, Congressman Bishop, distinguished guests, fellow Maconites, it is indeed my honor to stand with you today and participate in this service of love and unity, shoulder to shoulder, arm to arm, hand to hand. This is Macon, the very best of Macon. Many times I've said this in our community that this is the best place on earth, and yes, it is. This is a community with a long history of standing together, a community where our diversity is our strength, where every person is valued, and where we stand together and against discrimination in every form, because that's who we are. We saw this first in June of 2020, when our nation faced anew the racial injustice that has too long been a reality here and abroad. But in stark contrast to other communities around the country, our community marched together, without violence, with one voice, with citizens and law enforcement, side by side. We call for change, demonstrating again that as we continue to work toward a more just and equitable community, Our diversity is our strength. We saw it again in January of this year when dozens of Maconites gathered at City Hall to welcome the Muskogee Creek Nation, their chief and their second chief, to watch history unfold as we raised the nation's flag over the ancestral homeland that was ripped from them long ago. And we sit here today again. This is Macon, a community where an attack on any one of us is an attack on all of us. We are bound together by love, both for our community and for one another. No doubt we have our differences, and sometimes we fail to be our best. But we always strive to learn from each other, from our failures and our successes, to always know that we can do better. That's why when a small but hate-filled group of publicity seekers from Florida stopped here last weekend, which was their first mistake, to direct their hateful, anti-Semitic words and actions toward our Jewish neighbors, I was disgusted as you by their actions, but not at all surprised to see our community leaders immediately stand together in solidarity and in support of our Jewish community. They stood up that same day and said we would not tolerate an attack on our friends, our neighbors, and our family. They came together the very next day for a more public showing of that love as you physically stood together in support of each other. And when that small group showed up yet again, you made our community very proud of how you responded. Shoulder to shoulder, hand in hand, without violence. And that love is here again today. And it will be here tomorrow, and the next day, and the next year. Macon is a welcoming community, but there is no place, I repeat, no place here for the ignorance, the hate, the anti-Semitism directed toward our Jewish neighbors last weekend. No place here for discrimination of any kind, in any form. We stand here together with our neighbors. No doubt is a testament to the goodness of our community that we are here together again today. Today, we must acknowledge our community is resilient, but many of our neighbors are hurting here today. We are here to support you, and we love you, and we care about you. Those who sought to install fear failed. Instead, we stand together here today in love, in unity, and without fear. May this service today inspire us. May it heal us. May it serve as a catalyst as we continue to grow and to learn from one another how much we truly care for our neighbors as we embrace the challenge to create a safe, equitable future for everyone. God bless.
I'd like to, at this time, invite up Imam Adam Fafana. I have to say he is a friend, and I didn't know how much fun he was until he came to my birthday party last year. When, just wait, he'll slip you a joke when you least expect it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. Shalom, salam, shalom, always mean peace. Rabbi Elizabeth, good friend of mine, thank you very much for inviting me to this. And before you, Rabbi Satalov, and before that, my mentor, Rabbi Larry Schlesinger. I've been friend of Temple Beth Israel for the past 17 years, since I was hired as imam for the Muslim community of Middle Georgia. Ladies and gentlemen, a friend of mine told me this, and I want to share with you. He's still alive. He said when he got his immigrant visa to come to the United States, his parents told him, go to Mecca for pilgrimage. Go perform Umrah and thank God that He has given you admission to the paradise on earth. That's how we look to America. That's the America we envision, and that's the America we want to live in. I'm a living experience of that. For the past 17 years, nothing but love, kindness, and compassion from all these pastors here. And Rabbi, I can name them, but the time will not permit me. I was asked to share a verse from the Quran. It's on the pamphlet that you have. I'm going to recite it in Arabic and translate the meaning in English. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير صدق الله العظيم. O mankind, we have created you from a single pair, male and female, Adam and Eve. What was the color of Adam? What was the ethnicity of Adam? You were all children of Adam, and made you into nations and tribes so you might know one another. Indeed, the most honorable among you in the sight of God, Allah, is the one who is more pious. We are one nation. Yes, we may have differences on certain issues, on certain foreign policies, but when we come to our American experience, we are one nation under God, indivisible. And let me complete that sentence, of liberty and justice for all. Yes, indeed. So my fellow Americans, I'm here on behalf of the Muslim community of Middle Georgia and all the Muslims around the world, 1.8 billion human beings. Nothing but love for our Jewish brother. We will never, ever allow what happened in Nazi concentration camp in Germany to happen on our watch. This is the fact that we live by. Macon is about nothing but love. I have experiences for 17 years. And therefore, I was given only 1 minute, which is too short to express all I have to say. But a gentleman here, Mr. Art Jones, with his partner who called me yesterday to Atlanta and said, I want to bring the screening of Muhammad Ali coming back to Macon. You know, Ali lost his license back in 1967, and he could not get it back. It was 2 Jewish men and 2 Christian men, and he being a Muslim, who supported him to get his license back. And they did it here in Georgia, because Georgia at the time didn't have any law to regulate the boxing. Georgia is about love. Macon is about love. That is going to take place in October 26th. Those who are spreading the hate, come and see the love. October 26th in Macon. And my final statement, for those who are so jealous, because we have to be honest, there are people who say, why Jews are so rich? Why Jewish are this? Why Jewish are this? You don't have to be jealous of someone's success. Just learn from them. You too can be successful. Come and join on the boat. We live in this America, the land of dream. You can dream for anything and become that in your life. And they're all tool and support for you. So I thank you very much for the opportunity. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.
I'd like to invite up at this time my colleague, Rabbi Mike Rothbaum, and members of Congregation Beit Chavarim's chorus from Congregation Beit Chavarim in Atlanta.
My name is Rabbi Mike Rothbaum, and I am proud to serve Congregation Beth Havarim, which is a queer-founded synagogue up in Atlanta. When you see a person waving a swastika, like you saw here in Macon and in East Cobb, and in too many places in our country, because even one place is too many, what does that symbol mean? Who does that person hate? Do they hate Jews? Do they hate immigrants? Do they hate queer folks? Do they hate black folks? And the answer is yes. Some folks are concerned only with the safety and security of our own group. And this is a world that sometimes teaches us to be narrow and selfish and small. Well, there's a word for picking out one part of the whole and mistaking it for that whole, and we call that idolatry. To believe, as the Jewish Shema says in the book of Deuteronomy, that Adonai Echad, Adonai is one, means that all humanity created in God's image is also one. And it means that we fight tooth and nail for the dignity of every life created in God's image. Every Jewish life, every gay life, every Muslim life, every refugee life, every trans life, every disabled life, and yes, every black life. Amidst the forces of terror and death that reared their ugly faces here, we stand together as a beacon for life, insisting on life. I'm so proud to be the rabbi of a synagogue founded by people who experienced anti-Semitism and homophobia and transphobia, and with squared shoulders and open hearts, they faced it down and built a community of love. What we've built in Atlanta and what you are clearly building in Macon and in East Cobb can be built in Charleston and Buffalo and Pittsburgh and Poway and Washington and the entire country and this entire world. But only if we believe that we have the power to come together and pursue peace together and pursue justice together. You have to believe in that power. Ani ma'amin, be'emuna shlema, our chorus is about to sing, if I let them do it. Ani ma'amin, we believe with complete faith that redemption will come. Because if we don't believe, well, this struggle is over. And the forces of hate have already won. Because they won't have just stolen our security and our dignity, they'll have stolen our divinity and our humanity. They'll have stolen our souls. But we don't have to let them. Look around, look up, look left and right of you. If you showed up here today, at least part of you still believes. Cherish, guard that part of you like a prized, precious gem. Because it is a prized, precious gem. In a land of bigotry and violence, may we maintain our hope, our belief in the power of defiant righteousness, resilient spirit, and healing love. We say amen.
Ani, Ami.
You can come back anytime. Yasher Koach, beautiful job to that amazing choir. I want to introduce at this time Congressman Sanford Bishop. He's been a part of our state since 1964 by way of Mobile, Alabama, Morehouse College, and Emory University School of Law. He graduated from Morehouse in 1968, and Emory School of Law in 1971, where he then moved to Columbus, Georgia as a young attorney and carved out a path for public service. He was first elected to the Georgia House in 1976 and served in that body from 1977 to 1990. He then served in the Georgia State Senate from 1991 to 92. He is at heart a servant who cares about people, cares about his constituent, and cares about doing the right thing. He has been our congressman since his election in 1992 and is currently in his 16th term. Mazel tov on that one. He is the dean of the Georgia delegation. He is a man of faith and a family man. He's a member of Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church in Albany, where he is the deacon and trustee. He's married to the Honorable Vivian Creighton Bishop, who is a retired clerk of the municipal court. They have a daughter, Aisha Reese, and a granddaughter, London. I present to you this dedicated public servant and friend of our community, Congressman Sanford Bishop.
Good afternoon. Truly, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. We have come together at a time of great need to support our friends. So I say good afternoon, Senator Ossoff, Rabbi Bahor, fellow members of the clergy and community leaders from Macon Bib, and from all over. I am proud to stand here with you, representing all of the people of the 2nd Congressional District, all 765,000 of them, to see that we are joined together in our common humanity with love and support for our brothers and sisters in the Jewish community. My moral compass directs me, and the spirit of my friend John Robert Lewis compels me to be here in unity with each and every one of you. John would say often, if you see something that is not fair, that is not right, that is not just, you must say something, you must do something. A few days ago, once again, we saw that ugly specter, neo-Nazis, raise their ugly head across the country in Georgia, Marietta, Warner Robins, and right here in Macon. Neo-Nazis are an echo, a ghost of an evil ideology and a force that our country fought against and beat back in World War II. But like their predecessors, these neo-Nazis peddle bigotry and attempt to strike fear and sow division. But history has taught us that if left unchecked, these people will seek to translate this effort into power and violence at the expense of others. John Donne said centuries ago that no man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. Each man's death diminishes me, he said, for I am involved in mankind. Therefore, sin not to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Martin Luther King Jr. put it another way. He said that we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. It was the German pastor Martin Niemöller, reflecting upon his experience during the Holocaust after he himself was arrested for speaking out finally against the Holocaust. He said this: "First, they came for the socialist, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." Last weekend's neo-Nazi rallies, not just in front of Temple Beth Israel, but in other parts of our state and our nation, were attempts to separate us from our Jewish brothers and sisters. It was an attempt to make them feel vulnerable, unwelcomed, and threatened. Senator Ossoff, Rabbi Behar, today we stand up and we are speaking out for justice, for fairness, for tolerance, for love, and for peace. I am so happy that I can stand and look at this great gathering and know that we are in one spirit, yes, one nation, under God, indivisible, for justice and liberty for all. I pray that our standing here today will let us represent to all the world that we hope that our standing today will mean more of hope, less of fear, a better world and a better community because we are standing here.
Thank you very much for your beautiful words. I'd like to at this time invite up the very Reverend John Johnson from St. Joseph's Catholic Church. His church has been a longtime friend of my congregation, along with Reverend Dr. Ted Goshorn of Mulberry Street United Methodist Church, the church where you are in currently. Both of those churches have been in partnership with us for over 50 years, doing an interfaith Thanksgiving service, hosting when your building was flooded, and simply being present for one another. And so I thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Behar. And on behalf of our Catholic Christian community at St. Joseph, and speaking on behalf of all of God's people, in fact, the Catholic people of our Diocese of Savannah, we want to extend to you our warmest sentiments of solidarity and friendship. As you mentioned, the relationship between Temple Beth Israel and St. Joseph's as a community is decades old, and therefore I stand as a relatively recent representative of the community at St. Joseph, and for that reason I really don't feel equal to the task, but I want to say to you quite clearly and without hesitation that we love you, and it is with the bonds of our common humanity, friendship, and fraternity that we extend to you our solidarity in condemning all hate, prejudice of any kind, anti-Semitism, and racism in the most complete and roundest terms. I bring to you a message from the chief shepherd of our diocese, Bishop Stephen Parks, and I wish to extend that message to you now. To the people of Temple Beth Israel and to all the Jewish people in Macon. As a Catholic people, we are disheartened to hear of the anti-Semitic activity that was directed at Temple Beth Israel in Macon, Georgia. Acts of hatred are born in darkness. Therefore, we lift our Jewish brothers and sisters up in prayer. May the light of faith be a witness of hope and harmony. Sincerely, Bishop Stephen D. Parks. And with that, I lastly close this brief time with you. And once again, thank you for a moment to extend these words of solidarity and friendship, a friendship founded in bonds that are as close as blood. I extend to you this blessing on behalf of the people of God here in Macon, Georgia. God of heaven and earth, you created the one human family and endowed each person with great dignity. We ask you, Lord, to aid us in overcoming the sin of racism, prejudice, discrimination, and anti-Semitism. Grant us your grace in eliminating this blight. Eliminate it from our hearts, our communities, our social and civil institutions. Lord God, fill our hearts with your love for you and our neighbor, so that we may work with you in healing our land from racial injustice, anti-Semitism, and every expression of prejudice and hate, all fear among men and women. Amen. Thank you, and God bless you.
What do we say in the face of hatred? When I arrived at the temple last Friday about 5 p.m. or 2 Fridays ago, I found myself face to face with pure, unadulterated hatred. When I parked and I greeted Rabbi Bahar, offering her anything she needed on behalf of myself and Mulberry Street United Methodist Church, I could hear the voices of hatred yelling down the street. As I greeted members of the temple and folks from Centenary UMC as they arrived, I struggled for the words to say, for what do you say in the face of hatred? We in Temple Beth Israel have a long and mutual history of encouragement and support. We have had members here contribute to worship at the temple, including Roberta Jostino, who served as the cantor for the temple's worship. And together with St. Joseph's and other congregations from time to time, we have put on the Interfaith Thanksgiving service for the last several decades. Just about 2 years ago, as you heard Rabbi Bahar mention, Temple Beth Israel opened its sanctuary for us to use when our church had no water. And today, it is our deep pleasure to return the favor to our brothers and sisters and all their supporters. Look at all of the people gathered here today. Look at all of the people, you can't see them, but they're in the fellowship hall. Our tech person was just texting me, we have 100 people watching us online. Together, we gather together in response to hatred, saying as one to those who would bring hate to our beloved Macon, not here, not in Macon, that's not who we are. Together we respond in the face of hatred. We stand in solidarity with our Jewish brothers and sisters. Together, by being present today, we say, we are with you. We are with you, following the example of God, who is always with us. In the prophet Isaiah, God promises to be with us. In chapter 43, God says, I have called you by name, you are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, and the flame shall not consume you, because you are precious in my sight and honored, and I love you. God chooses to be with us, to protect us, to even suffer with us. And so today, I say on behalf of myself, Mulberry Street United Methodist Church, and all of us gathered here, when you, Temple Beth Israel, pass through the waters of despair, we will pass with you. When a river of anti-Semitism threatens to overwhelm you, we will build a dam. When you walk through the fires of hatred, we will walk with you. When you stand up against people who mean you harm, we will stand with you. No flood of hatred, no act of terror will stand between you and us. As God has entered into our suffering and promised to be with us, so we will do the same. We enter into your suffering. We are with you. We are with you today. We are with you tomorrow. We are with you however long you experience hatred. We are with you as long as anti-Semitism endures. We are with you because you are precious and honored in our sight, and we love you. What do we say in the face of hatred? In the face of all that is ungodly and unrighteous? In the face of all that means evil? What do we say in the face of hatred? We say those four simply powerful words: we are with you. Amen.
As my High Holiday Choir gets in position, they are an exciting group of people, as you can see. They're going to sing for all of us today the beautiful melody of Shalom Rav. And let's take just a second to think about the profound message which is found in its lyrics. Shalom Rav translates as abundant peace. And in this prayer, we beseech for peace to bestow upon us, our community, and upon all the world. In a world often filled with turmoil and discord, Shalom Rav serves as a reminder of our collective responsibility to cultivate peace. And as we join our voices together in harmony, let us carry this intention of peace into all of our interactions, into our relationships, and our endeavors. May the timeless words of Shalom Rav resonate within us, guide us to be instruments of peace and compassion. Together, let us strive to create a world where peace reigns and every individual is embraced with love and understanding. At this time, I'd like to introduce Senator John Ossoff, who was born and raised in Georgia and serves as our senior United States Senator. In 2020, Senator Ossoff, in addition to being the youngest senator elected in 40 years, was the first Jew elected to the United States Senate from the Deep South since 1878. Senator Ossoff was bar mitzvahed at the Temple in Atlanta, a congregation which some of you may or may not be aware of experienced anti-Semitism in the 1950s when it was bombed. Today, he still lives in Atlanta with his wife, Alicia, an OBGYN physician, and baby daughter, Eva Beth. He is sworn into the United States Senate on a Tanakh belonging to Rabbi Jacob Rothschild, the Atlanta rabbi who served at the temple when those white supremacists came for the rabbi's support of civil rights. Since his historic election, Senator Ossoff has built bipartisanship in the Senate to achieve meaningful results for us in Georgia. Thank you. Considering how divided the United States Senate is, what a huge effort and undertaking that is. In his first 2 years in office, Senator Ossoff has passed into law more standalone bills than any other freshman senator. He has led many legislative efforts in the Senate, including delivering $305 million to help synagogues and other nonprofits enhance their security and passing legislation to secure justice for victims of unsolved civil rights era lynchings and murders. Since taking office, Senator Ossoff has engaged intensively with key leaders in the Middle East to build the relationships necessary for effective work toward peace, security, and stability in Israel, the Palestinian territories, and the surrounding region. The Israeli newspaper Haaretz wrote in 2002, quote, "A year and a half into his national political career, he is emerging as one of the most significant voices in Washington on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict," end quote. And that Senator Ossoff has notably, again, quote, "spearheaded significant bipartisan efforts aimed at pushing conflict resolution and political settlement forward." Mentored by civil rights legend Congressman John Lewis, Senator Ossoff previously led a small business that produced investigative journalism exposing war crimes, political corruption, human trafficking, and organized crime, and now serves in the Senate as chairman of the Subcommittee on Human Rights, where he investigates human rights violations. Senator Ossoff, like so many families in our community, grew up among family who survived the Holocaust, something he and I have in common. And he works today to combat hate in the United States Senate through his work as key members of the Senate Bipartisan Task for Combating Anti-Semitism. Facing down the threat of a filibuster, Senator Ossoff took the Senate floor on March 30th, 2022, to personally force through confirmation of Georgia's own Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt to be special envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism. And for that, thank you.
Good afternoon. This is such a beautiful sight. And Reverend Goshorn and the whole family at Mulberry Street United Methodist Church, we thank you for your hospitality. Please join me in sharing our gratitude to the Reverend and the church for having us. Rabbi Bahar and the whole Temple Beth Israel family. Clearly, the people of Macon-Bibb County and Middle Georgia are with you. The people of the state of Georgia are with you. The American people are with you. The whole world rallies behind you after what happened last week. Mayor Miller, Congressman Bishop, State Representatives Panich, Beverly, Walker, Dickey, Dove Wilker, Regional Director of the American Jewish Committee, Sheriff David Davis and your deputies. Please join me in thanking the sheriff and his deputies for taking care of us today. Special agents at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, U.S. Attorney Peter Leary, Consul General of Israel to Georgia and the Southeastern United States, my friend Anat Sultan Judan. Thank you as well for joining us. In 1941, in Vilnius, present-day Lithuania, a man named Nathan Krugman was on his way home from a dance. He was 18 years old. Like any young man, experiencing life, enjoying life, imagining possibilities. When Vilnius came under bombardment from the German war machine. And at the panicked urging of his mother, he and his brother got on their bicycles and tried to follow the retreating Soviet army as the German Wehrmacht bore down on the city. They made it just about to the outskirts of Minsk before they realized the situation was far too dangerous to proceed, and after having their bikes stolen from them, they walked and snuck back to Vilnius, their city now under Nazi rule. Reunited with his family, Nathan and his brother joined them in what of two ghettos established in Vilnius for the Jews. There was a big ghetto, and there was a small ghetto. It was him and his mother and father and brother, his aunt and uncle, and their son, and 4 other families packed into 2 rooms, the men and the boys going out on daily work details, during which they learned what was happening to their fellow Jews in the small ghetto, who were being taken by death squads to the edge of a ravine on the outside of the city, forced to kneel together as families, shot in the head, and kicked into a ditch where their fellow Jews were made to bury them. In March of 1943, Nathan was separated from his family. The Nazis took him and his father away from his mother, his brother, his aunt, his uncle, and his cousin, put them on a train with about 2,000 Jews headed to what is now Estonia, near the Varvara concentration camp, where he was put to work, guarded by SS with little food, frequent beatings, 1 layer of striped prison clothing. He would later recount how he'd wake up with his hair frozen to the barracks wall in the brutal Baltic winter. Many died, of course, under these conditions. Many were killed. those not deemed fit for work, including children, had been killed upon arrival. And Nathan's father was dying of dysentery. Now, Nathan had done what he could to forage and care for his father, for the others who were in the most acute distress in the camp. But one day his father took him aside and explained to him that he was sure to die, and that young Nathan needed to do what was necessary to survive, and that his father would understand. And so as the Soviet army now bore down to the west, and the Germans were poised to be expelled from the Baltic states, Nathan and 18 others ran. They dug a bunker deep in the woods. They foraged at night, collecting potatoes, collecting fruit, setting traps, surviving for 6 months before surrendering to Russian troops in late 1944. Nathan then spent 2 years in a displaced persons camp in Germany before he realized that perhaps his only move was to reach out to his family in America. Now, I should note that upon returning to Vilnius, Nathan learned that just 2 weeks after he'd been sent to that work camp, the Nazis had liquidated the big ghetto too. And his mother and his brother and his aunt and his uncle and his cousin had all been slaughtered or sent to death camps. And out of his family of 70 in Vilnius, only 2 had survived. Him and a cousin who had wound up in the Red Army and been wounded. So he put an advertisement in the forward looking for his family in Peabody, Massachusetts, looking for his aunt named Annie. A year and a half later, having established correspondence with his American family, Nathan got his immigration documents and boarded a ship for the United States. I tell you this story for a few reasons. The first is that as we react in this beautiful, united, and determined way to what happened last weekend, it's painful but important to remember that the swastika is not merely a symbol of hate. Hate is an idea or a feeling. The swastika is a symbol of massacre, slavery, medical experimentation, extermination, and genocide. I also tell you that story because I mentioned that Nathan made contact with his Aunt Annie. And it just so happened that's Annie Ossoff. And she had arrived at Ellis Island along with my great-grandfather Israel in 1911 and 1913, and I was sworn into the Senate with, in my jacket pocket, a copy of the ship's manifests documenting their arrival, fleeing pogroms and anti-Semitism here in the United States. And so I know for Middle Georgia's Jewish community, these aren't abstractions or ancient stories. These are the experiences of beloved family members with whom we were raised and grew up. I also tell you that story because Nathan's only choice was to come to America. And just as Israel and Annie, my great-grandfather, my great-grandmother, came to America, seeking a place that promised tolerance and opportunity regardless of faith or race or national origin, just as my own mother, who is with us here today, came to America as an immigrant at 23 years old, seeking the same. America still is and still represents to the world the values of universality, of human rights, of tolerance, of love, of kindness, that are the only antidote to the forces of hatred and genocide which have and will, throughout human history, risen and continue to rise and rise again. There is nothing inevitable about the defeat of these ideas or these forces. It requires work. It requires commitment. It requires argument. It requires political action. It requires faith. It requires exactly what we're doing here in this space right now. In fact, what draws so many to America is this. What draws so many to America is the fact that when something happens, like what happened last weekend, Christians, Protestant, Catholic, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus, agnostics, atheists, folk of all belief or no belief, people of every race, every age, every class, every background will come to a church to stand behind a rabbi and a synagogue and affirm that we love each other, that we have her back, that we have her congregation's back, that we are willing not just to put into word our belief in what America is, but to put it into deed. So I'm mostly just here to say thank you. This right here, right now, is what makes America great. This is the community. This is the community in Macon-Bibb County and Middle Georgia saying that we understand and we believe in and we will fight for and we are committed to the values that all are created equal, that we are out of many one, and that we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Ossoff, for such inspiring words. I'd like to invite up this time my colleague and friend, Rabbi Aaron Rubenstein, who's the rabbi at Congregation Shari Israel right down the street, who will
Before I share with you words from Psalm 130, to briefly echo words that have been spoken, there's a rabbinic phrase, a two-word phrase, hakarat tov, which translates acknowledgement of the good, which is all of you who are here, as a very powerful reminder for me personally why I live here and why it is a privilege to serve among you. And one last thing before I read the words of the psalm. Really, as an ancient precursor of the senator's very stirring words, words of counsel from a second century teacher whose name was Rabbi Tarfon, and he wrote, Lo alecha hamalacha ligmor, the task is not for you to complete. V'lo ata ben chorin lihi batel mimena, however, you are not free to desist from the work. Shir hamalot mimamakim kiraticha Adonai, Adonai shima b'koli, Tihiena oznecha kashuvot lekol tachanunai, im avonot tishmoria, Adonai mi ya'amod, ki imecha haslicha leman tivarei, ki viti Adonai kivta nafshi, velidvaro hochalti. Nafshi l'Adonai mishomrim laboker, shomrim laboker. Yachel Yisrael el Adonai, ki im Adonai hachesed veharbe imo fedut, vehu yifde et Yisrael mikol avonotav. A song of ascents. From the depths I called you, Adonai. Master, hear my voice. May your eyes listen close to the voice of my plea. Were you God to watch for wrongs, Master, who could endure? For forgiveness is yours, so that you may be revered. I hoped for Adonai, my being hoped, and for your word I waited, my being for the Master. More than the watchers await for the dawn. Wait, O Israel, for Adonai, for with God is steadfast kindness, and great redemption is with God. And God will redeem Israel from all its wrongs.
It's my pleasure at this time to introduce Rabbi Elizabeth Bahar of Temple Beth Israel. And as she comes to speak, I'd like to say a few words to say that she, in the midst of her own trauma and in the midst of giving exemplary pastoral care to the members of her congregation, put this service together, fielded all of the calls that go with it, and has just done an exemplary job. And I think in this service we see evidence of what a wonderful rabbi Elizabeth is.
Start crying. Okay. I'm gonna start crying. So I have a story. I'm a rabbi, so rabbis tell stories, of course. Though if you were to sit with me in my class at Mercer, where I'm an adjunct teaching Bible, I don't tell stories. There I give lots of lectures, and somewhat esoteric ones at that. In Eastern Europe, there lived a wealthy man of average character. After his passing, his soul faced judgment in the heavenly court, and a large pair of scales occupied the center of this court. On one side of the scale were all of the man's good deeds, special activities he had participated in his long life, all kind of piled up. And on the other side, you can imagine, the opposite. All of the bad deeds, all of the thoughtless and negative behaviors were collected. The scales just a little bit imbalanced. You can kind of imagine where they may have headed toward. They were burdened, unfortunately, with some of his misdeeds. The tilting negatively, of course, would result in the man's sentence, or his soul's sentence, I should say, to condemnation and punishment. Desperation, you can imagine, filled the air as the angel who was his defense looked at him and said, is there anything you've overlooked? And the wealthy man's soul recalled an incident from decades prior while he was reading in his carriage, and you can kind of imagine, AKA flipping on his phone watching TikTok. He and his driver stumbled upon a family in a swamp. The driver asked if they could stop and help the man who had been lost. And of course, the man who said, oh yeah, of course, yeah, we can help. Together, the both of them intervened, rescuing the family and all of their belongings. And as the angels went on to debate whether this act or part of it should be considered in the soul's scale before the heavenly court, the judge, i.e. God, proclaimed that saving them, even though not the wealthy soul's idea, counted and ultimately shifted the weight of the scales. From this tale, we learn that every single act of compassion can hold immense significance. It reminds us of our capacity to make a difference, no matter how small. Every single act counts. It can transform not just our own fate, but the fate of others around us. It reminds us that even when we are lost in our world, sometimes opportunities for kindness will just come and smack us in the face when we least expect it. Well, we all know why we are here. We've heard the words of many profound speakers reminding us why we are here. And I'll share from my own perspective what I felt. Last week, when a hateful group came before the synagogue, we were about to begin Torah study or Bible study. And they did reprehensible things. They made disgusting statements and engaged in acts to garner attention. And I'll admit to you, a room full of strangers who are now my best friends, I was scared. I was scared as they screamed and did Nazi salutes at me through the windows when they saw me looking out at them. I was scared as they lynched a doll, put a kippah on it, and wrapped a rainbow flag around it and hung it from the street post. I was scared that there would be others who followed them who would feel emboldened by them. I was scared because I am the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, whose family, a lot of whom died in various concentration camps in Europe, and I know what unchecked anti-Semitism can lead to. Yet I was deeply affected, by the willingness of friends to stand up. That day, Reverend Dr. Ted Goshorn came to the temple, as did Reverend Sarah Pugh Montgomery and Flo Martin from the Women's Interfaith. The neighbors whose homes surround our building stood up and took videos, which I hope the FBI, the U.S. Attorney, and the Sheriff's Office will be able to use to press hate crimes charges. I texted the sheriff, and you know what? He responded right away. And he said he was sending someone. Our security person, Sheriff's Deputy Aaron Miller, helped. The next day, Macon came together spontaneously at the organization of Jim Crisp. And that morning, I didn't realize the significance of that day. I had a pre-planned vacation and I was out of here. Well, the truth was I didn't expect so much response from Macon. I've only been here for 3 years, and I'm glad to say I was so wrong. Again, the hateful group returned to be in front of the temple. They went on to Cobb County and again spewed their hate. And when I announced the planning of the service as our more formalized response, I envisioned maybe filling our sanctuary. I thought maybe the mayor would speak. And when I spoke to Senator Ossoff on the phone, he called, by the way, to make sure we were okay, I asked him to speak, thinking he would say no, because you're a busy senator. And you know what? You said yes. The truth is, there's a reason why I didn't think there would be much of a response. Anti-Semitic actions are becoming commonplace. Even somewhere like New York, which, as I'm sure you all know, has a sizable Jewish population, earlier this week, Mayor Eric Adams doubled down on comments he made comparing an 84-year-old woman and housing rights activist whose family had fled the Holocaust to a plantation owner. I was skeptical. After all, the United States has recently experienced an alarming increase in anti-Semitic incidents, among other acts of hatred. American Jews only account for 2.4% of the U.S. population, but are victims of 63% of reported religiously motivated hate crimes, according to the FBI. And while anti-Semitic incidents most directly and intensively impact and affect the Jewish community, it doesn't ever stop there. We are always the canary in the coal mine. Conspiracy theories fuel other forms of hatred, other forms of discrimination and bias, including other religious minorities, race, sex, and identities who are LGBTQIA+. Hatred doesn't stop, it snowballs. It divides one American from the other. It erodes trust in our government, in our non-government institution. It undermines our very democracy, whose words we heard said out loud from this very pulpit today. And yet, that's not what happened here, not in Macon, Georgia. Peter Leary, the U.S. Attorney, has been in regular contact, as has the Sheriff's Office, as the FBI, wanting to make sure we as a Jewish community felt safe moving forward. Thank you, Peter. As I'm sure you figured out, I had to cut my vacation short by a lot. I was on the phone anyway most of the time, talking to people here, providing interviews to media outlets and around the world, and most important, my biggest job of all, offering pastoral support to my congregants, many of whom were deeply hurt. And still I was skeptical of what would happen. As I said and mentioned, there's been a normalization of anti-Semitism. High-profile politicians and athletes, celebrities, and others have all used their influential platforms to spread hate and Holocaust denialism. But again, not in Macon. Slowly, more people started to step up in small and big ways. People reached out to their friends, whether they're leaders, political leaders, religious leaders. If you're a leader in the community, please stand up. You can rise now. This is where we thank you. In Macon, there have been many churches who have come out to support us. They've offered their parking lots, water, transportation to and from those lots. Even Hart's Funeral Home has provided fans, which I can see you're all using because it is a little hot in here. The American Jewish Committee has offered its support from Atlanta and Dove, wherever you are. Thank you very much. As has the Israeli Consulate. Thank you. And I spoke to the head of the Reform Movement, Rabbi Rick Jacobs, and other Jewish leaders and rabbis from around the country. What I saw, but more importantly, what I felt, was that we were not alone. And all of your deeds tip the scale of what is Macon towards something good. All of your little deeds, large and small, made a difference. Those deeds counted among kindness that was shared, and you know what? That kindness inspired other kindness until kindness spread, and now we're in a room full of kind people. Look at you. You're all kind. I thought we might only have 250 to 300 people in our sanctuary. I am blown away by all of your presence here. It's unbelievable, knowing that just a few weeks ago, the White House launched an initiative to combat anti-Semitism because the level of anti-Semitism in this country has increased so much. And yet here in Macon, when confronting anti-Semitism, we have collectively responded in a united faith against hatred and bigotry. These deeds have in fact tipped the scale so that in Macon we are living out Dr. King's prophetic words that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. In the waning moments of his final interview, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel said and shared with Carl Stern some words that he thought of, and they had shared it off screen, and Carl had asked him to share it on screen regarding youth. In his brief closing comments, Rabbi Heschel implored young people to build their lives as if they were works of art. For Heschel, this includes protest as well as celebration. It includes the observance of Shabbat, the marching for African American civil rights, and the writing of Yiddish poetry, and fighting for religious freedom of Jews in the former Soviet Union. Rabbi Heschel was a refugee from Nazi Europe who escaped Warsaw just 6 weeks before the German bombardment of Poland. And Heschel described himself as a brand plucked from the fires of barbarism. And yet he also regularly spoke about the daily miracle of the rising of the sun, the beauty of the grass, the majesty of butterflies, the breath of wind, the setting of the sun as wondrous events worthy of prayerful attention. As we attempt to respond to the current surge of anti-Semitism, let's follow in the footsteps of Rabbi Abraham Heschel and other brave and inspirational figures who are working to extinguish the scourging flames of hatred and increase the radiating light of Jewish wisdom and innovation. Thank you. As they're setting up to sing Oseh Shalom, we're going to read a prayer because we're in a sacred space, and that's what you do in sacred spaces. So if you want to look on your program, when evil darkens our world, let us be the bearers of light. Together, when fists are clenched in self-righteous rage, let our hands be open for the sake of peace. When injustice slams doors on the ill, the poor, the old, and the stranger, let us pry the doors open. Where shelter is lacking, let us be builders. Where food and clothing are needed, let us be providers. Where knowledge is denied, let us be champions of learning. When dissent is stifled, let our voices speak truth to power. When the earth and its creatures are threatened, let us be their guardians. When bias, greed, and bigotry erode our country's values, let us proclaim liberty throughout the land. In the place where no one acts like a human being, let us bring courage, let us bring compassion, let us bring humanity.
At this time, I invite Mike Kaplan to come and bring a few words, and as he comes, a few words about dismissal when the time comes for that. What we'll ask is that we allow our dignitaries to exit through this door first, and when they have exited, then all of the exterior doors will be open, and we invite you to leave by whatever means is closest to you. Through this door, there's an exterior entrance right next to it. Through this door, as you go down the hallway, you'll see the doors out into the courtyard. And of course, if you need to go back out through the atrium, our volunteers will show you the way. Mike.
Wow, thank you. A lot of you know me. My name is Mike Kaplan. I've been vice president of the temple for 2 weeks now. If I seem a little nervous and emotional, I will be that way today. You'll have to pardon me. I'm not a professional speaker like all these other people in front of us. I'm usually the nervous Jew in church. When I go with my wife, and today I see a lot of fellow Jews, and as a matter of fact, today, I think we're all Jews. I often tell my friends, I don't want to be your favorite Jew, I just want to be your second favorite Jew. There are a lot of people here that we owe a lot of gratitude to. And I guess I'm the guy that's speaking on behalf of Temple Beth Israel and the Jewish folks of Macon. We have with us today Senator David Lucas, Georgia State Senator David Lucas, and his wife, Commissioner Elaine Lucas, and the board members of the local chapter of the Martin Luther King Center, and we welcome them with us today. We also have Robert Dickey is with us today. And for those of you that haven't read, Robert and Dale Washburn, our other representative who couldn't be with us today, if you haven't read his response, I ask you to. We have a lot of politicians in the room, and it's time for this nonsense to stop. It's not welcome here. It's not welcome in our town. It's not welcome in our city. It's not welcome in our state. And it's not welcome in our country. We urge you, everybody here does, not just anti-Semitism, but hate has no place in our society. I'd also, and by the way, we have with us today Representative Esther Panich, who is with us, who has introduced a bill that would take care of a lot of this stuff. And by the way, she's the only Jewish member of the state legislature. And I mean, that guy, when I saw him, told me we were in control of everything. And I can't figure out, well, only guy. It just doesn't make any sense. Thank you for coming, Esther. We have with us from Houston County, where they were so affected as well, Senator Larry Walker and his wife Adrian and Representative Shaw Blackman. We appreciate y'all coming and joining with us. We also have the minority speaker of the Georgia House of Representatives, James Beverly, is with us today. Mr. Beverly, thank you for coming. We also want to thank all the politicians, Governor Kemp, Senator Kennedy, who is on vacation, for their statements disavowing this action, not only of anti-Semitism, but hate. So I think I pretty much recognized everybody. If I've missed somebody, I apologize. And now I get to the thank you part, which is the tough part. First part, and this isn't in any particular order, but I have to thank Mayor Miller. Mayor Miller and all the Board of Commissioners were out of town when this happened. I think y'all were in Savannah when this man walked up to my temple. And I called the mayor. The police were there. And I sent him a picture of what they had done. And for those that don't know, they hung someone in effigy from the corner of Spring and Cherry. And he looked at that picture and he called me back, and he didn't even call me back. He didn't hesitate. He said, that won't do. And he had it taken down and that man arrested. And thank you, Mr. Miller. David Davis and his women from the Sheriff's Department, I just don't know what to say. Anybody can protect anybody. They're trained to do that. But he cares. They all care. They've all put their arms around me. They've all put their arms around all of us. All of us at the temple have felt comfortable and loved and cared for, not just by the sheriff, by all of his staff and everybody there. So thank you, Sheriff. When this all happened, it kind of was shocking. I mean, you know, we see it on TV and we see it on movies, but when I went downtown and saw what was going on, it was scary. And Jim Crisp decided not to sit around and do nothing. And he organized what was a very social media rally at our temple on Saturday. And just that simple rally brought 300, and to me was the impetus for this. So thank you, Jim, for standing up for Macon. He's a pretty decent director, too, by the way. I just throw that in there. The DIA sounds sinister, doesn't it? But actually, the Downtown Interfaith Council, Interfaith Alliance, it sounds terrible. The DIA is the Downtown Interfaith Alliance. When this happened, the first people at our temple was the Downtown Interfaith Alliance. First person I saw was Sarah from Centenary Church, and then my new friend over here, Ted. And he said I could call him Ted. I didn't know what to call him. He said Ted. So Ted it is. And these people were there immediately, without fail, without hesitation, with no fear. I mean, for those of you who weren't there, it was a scary situation on Friday. There were some bad people in our town. Bringing a lot of hate, and nobody seemed to care. When I say that, they didn't. I'd also like to thank Anita Howard and U.S. Attorney Peter Leary, who was there for us and continue to be for us. And Anita couldn't be here with us, but she was certainly at our rally on last Saturday, and we appreciate the job Anita and her staff are doing. I'd like to thank Mulberry Methodist Church. Not just the people of this church, because people come and go, right? This church has been here since I was a child. This church has been here for a long time. I can remember, and most of us here that know me know, we spent a lot of time right downstairs with Mr. Ayers keeping us apart. Mulberry Youth used to have a Saturday program down here, and all the kids would come hang out downstairs and shoot pool and dance with Mr. Ayers. Y'all stay arm length apart, folks. I'll imagine what he'd be doing today. Poor thing. But Mulberry Street has been part of the fabric of this city for a long, long time. You know, that was a Jew hanging from that corner of 2nd and Cherry. But it could have been anybody. It could have been a Muslim. It could have been a Native American. Could have been an African American. It could have been a Catholic. Could even have been a Christian. People are being persecuted for their religious beliefs all over this country. I believe the response from this town would have been identical, no matter who was hanging from that cross, hanging from that tree. When I asked this man, and by the way, I had a chance to run him over, and I didn't. I'm sorry. I had a vision of my mother on one head and David Davis on the other, and I just couldn't run him over. But I did ask him. I said to him, "Excuse me, why did you pick Macon?" He said, "Just random." I said, "You're kidding. You just randomly picked Macon?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "You randomly chose wrong." There is a psalm that goes, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will feel no evil, for thou art with me." He didn't say we didn't have to walk through that valley of death, and he didn't say we didn't have to face evil. He just said he'd be with us. And he is with us because you're here. You're here because of him. I fully believe that. We're all God's children. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts and the depths of our souls for what you're showing to us and the Jewish community in this town. God bless you all.
So as the praise team from Community Church of Christ gets ready, hold on. I want you to actually at this point get your phones out. I want you to turn and you'll find a QR code. Yes, I'm the tech-savvy rabbi. And yes, I love technology because you showed up tells me you care. But I don't want your caring and your kindness to end today. Stand with us in our fight against anti-Semitism. Stand with us in our fight against hate. Stand with us because you will not tolerate this coming back into Macon and this coming back into our home, the state of Georgia. So if you're curious what does stand with us look like, I'll let you know. Because anti-Semitism tells me that there's hatred, fear, and ignorance underneath. Let's learn. Let's learn about anti-Semitism. So there's opportunities for learning. As a result of this, I'd like to announce that I'm planning an interfaith trip to Eastern Europe to explore the unchecked effects of anti-Semitism. And I can tell you that there's already money available for scholarships. Thank you, Mulberry, wherever you went. Ted, there you are, for helping let me know that there are scholarships available. So if you want to travel to Europe, woohoo, sign on. If you're interested in working with the state legislature to help stamp out anti-Semitism and start some of the work that was started, and unfortunately I have to say did not pass in the last session, the AJC, the American Jewish Committee, wants your help. Sign on. If you want to... If you want to help with the fight against anti-Semitism, sign on. Work with the Anti-Defamation League in all of its efforts. And lastly, if you want to support LGBTQIA plus Jews, because it was a gay Jew that was lynched, don't forget, donate and support Congregation Beit Chavarim, the only LGBTQIA plus congregation. And my home is your home. If you want to pray with us, come to Temple Beth Israel. We're a fun group of people. We make mean potlucks. We love on you. So come on down. Come home. Y'all have been thanked enough. We're going to conclude with the praise team leading us, and you can find the chorus, on here with Every Praise by Hezekiah Walker. Jason, is there anything I missed about that song, or did I hit it? I got it. Okay.